Mike Headley, your boy's back, host of the Headley Group Real Estate Show. We're going a little bit. Had to tweak some things, but now we are back solid and on track. A lot of good episodes coming that will continue to enlighten and educate you on the power of real estate. We're talking to investors, contractors, real estate brokers, attorneys. You're going to get overwhelmed about this power of real estate. Watch this episode dropping now. Having an account for each different property.
Yes.
And why do you do that?
Because you don't want to commingle your properties with the funds that you have. Okay. So each property I have has a separate LLC. Each property that I have has a separate bank account. So there's never any, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul kind of situation. They're all handled individually.
And that's not
it's
required.
Also an asset protection. It's also an asset protection vehicle, because if you're suing me on property A,
makes sense.
Property B is not exposed.
Hey gang, this is Mike Headley. We are back. Another great episode on the Headley Group Real Estate Show. We got a good one for you. Now, typically on our podcast, we interview all kinds of people that's focused and centered on real estate or have some kind of leverage with real estate. In this particular episode here, we're highlighting a gentleman not in the residential space class of real estate, the multifamily class. So we're going to get educated, get enlightened, and pick up some good tips that we can put in our business. Or if you're thinking about getting multifamily, you can put that in your business as well. So let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Phil Georges with Multifamily Graduates. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing wonderful. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. We know we had to get you on the show. Brother, you've it's your accolades is phenomenal in terms of with this real estate industry, and you've made a big dent in it. But the first question I want to ask you, what made you get into real estate?
What got me into real estate?
What got you into real estate?
Man, I'm from New York City originally, and my story started with infomercial I saw late night. They said get rich in real estate, and being the young man I was 24 at the time. I said, man, I'd like to do this, even though my background was in microbiology. Okay. So I went to that infomercial weekend course, and from that point on, I just knew I knew it all, which I didn't. And I purchased a 6-family property and didn't know what I was doing.
Wow.
That's how I got started.
So let's talk about that. That 6-family property, did that come from, when you say you didn't know what you're doing, did it come from the knowledge of the course?
Well, I took the course and they gave you basic principles about buying property. And again, I was a knucklehead. I was 24 and I listened halfway, but I just said, hey, I could do this. And I made the big mistake of buying a 6-family that was a shell. So for those listeners who don't know what a shell is, that means it has no windows, no doors, no kitchens, no bathrooms, and very bad condition. And what I did is I cleaned it out. I thought that was the first thing you do. I cleaned it out. I paid, good money to clean it out. Then I had some contractors come over to give me estimates, which I thought was the next step on how to get this place back in service. However, after a handful of contractors came through, one of them pointed out to me that when it's fully repaired, it won't be worth the repair value he'd put into it. So that's where not understanding the business came in. So A learning lesson.
So yeah, so now that you got that six family, you say you brought a shell, you didn't know what you was doing. That six family propelled you into getting something else. And how long was that before you purchased the next property?
It was about 4 years because at that point I had burnt out all of my resources with that shell because
Okay.
I put all the money I had at that young age into it, not being able to get any out.
Okay.
But at the same time, I realized, being from New York City, that other people were making money, obviously, with multifamily properties, because that's mostly what we have in New York City. So I used those 4 years to gain knowledge. And then I started buying, one property here, one property there, and began to understand the business and kept learning, on the job, so to speak.
Got you. So you did
But
the
I didn't
knowledge
make any
acquisition.
money on that first one. I lost money.
Oh, really? You didn't make no money on it?
Oh, no, I lost money.
Do you still own it to this day?
No, what actually happened was when I was told what the end result would be, that I wouldn't make any money, I'd lose money, I cut my losses and stopped making the payments on the mortgage.
Oh, wow.
And it got, luckily for me, it got eminent domain. That's where the city comes in and takes the property away for other uses. And in this case, this property turned out to be a park.
Okay.
So when they eminent domained it, they would have given me money. The problem was I was so backed up on the mortgage, all of the payment went to the mortgage, and I walked away with nothing, but I didn't get a foreclosure on my record.
Beautiful. Was it at market value at the time?
I wouldn't say it was market. I guess market value for a shell, yes.
For sure. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So now 4 years later, you purchased your next deal. Okay. I'm quite sure that was a more easier and smoother transition.
Much better.
Much better, right? Because you developed the knowledge acquisition, much information you can the prior 4 years.
Exactly.
Did you get a mentor, or you were just reading books or sweat equity? What were you doing?
I was just reading books. I was part of the New York City RIA group, which I learned from them as well. A lot of guys in New York City were doing real estate, and I used to listen to this radio show that was about real estate. There weren't podcasts back then, but there were radio shows, and there wasn't much education to get a mentor. So the mentors that I had were people that were part of that real estate group that were doing deals, and listening to the podcast, I kind of figured things out.
Gotcha. So now, and again, I don't want to definitely figure out the time frame of it. So this is what, 80s?
This is my second purchase happened in 89. My first one was 85.
85, and real estate was very popular then.
It was popular, but at that time, real estate was also suffering a market correction at the same time, because interest rates back then, when I bought my first property, interest rates were 12%. And you hear people complaining about the interest rate today, and I think about it, I'm like, man, I was way higher than that, but I managed to survive.
Survived. Awesome. So now, okay, we bump it up, we fast forward a little bit. And how long after before you purchase your next one?
Probably a year after that. I was on a clip of in the early stages of about one a year.
1 year. That was a game plan strategy, or it just happened that way?
No, it just happened that way. I'm going to be honest. I didn't have a game plan or a strategy. I still was relatively young, and not too many people that looked like me were in the business anyway. Gotcha. I was just, buying one at a time. And then I finally, I think it was like early or mid 90s, I realized I had enough equity in those single families and bought my first big multifamily.
And how long ago was after that? How long? What time frame was that?
When I bought the multifamily from single family, it's probably another 5 years.
Another 5 years. Gotcha. Okay, right. So let me back it up. So you started off buying single family, not multifamily.
Well, I bought my first one, which was the multifamily.
Okay.
Didn't know what I was doing. So I said, maybe I need to buy a couple of single families to learn this business.
Gotcha.
Started buying a few multifamilies. And after a while, I realized if I could get all these assets in one location, I'd be better off. So I sold
Mm.
off the single families, bought a multifamily, and then from that point on, that's all I ever did.
Okay, two-part question now, and I'm glad you segued into that because the energy around is single family get you a FHA loan, or you get a triplex, duplex, quadruplex, have other people pay the rent, 3.5% down. But you said, nah, I'm getting rid of my single family. I'm focused on multifamily.
Right.
And you did that because you said you only wanted one roof, everything in one central location.
It made sense to me to have all of my assets in one place,
Okay.
as opposed to at the time, I was driving to Camden, New Jersey. I was driving upstate New York because I had properties wherever I could afford them at that time.
Gotcha. Okay.
And once I realized I have enough equity to buy a bigger one, I said, you know what? If I sell these, I'll have enough equity to buy a bigger property and then do that.
Okay. Okay. So, if you don't mind, can you walk us through a deal and educate the viewers? What does that look like? Lisa Erica Sean sees a 20 unit and says, "I want to purchase that." What would be the instructions you would give them? You were standing right next to them.
Well, if I'm standing right next to them, first thing I want to know is, do they have the down payment?
Okay.
Now, the down payment could be as little as you said, 3%, if that's their first purchase or they don't own any other real estate. However, if they do or have some real estate already, their own home, they may not qualify for a 3% down loan. So at that point, they're going to have to, if they're buying a 20 unit, then, they do have to come up with conventional financing. So depending on what market that property is, will determine the price. So they're going to have to come up with 25 to 30% of the money, plus some reserves. So if they've got that, the process is pretty similar to residential real estate. You put the money down, you get the loan. In multifamily, though, the only difference is you're going to fix units to increase the rent. That's the goal. So multifamily, you want to buy something that is not in perfect condition.
Okay.
You want to buy something that needs a little bit of TLC, where you can come in, fix it up a little bit, clean up the management, and change the value of the property. And you heard me correctly when I said change the value of the property.
Got you. Okay.
You don't get to do that in single family to the same degree. Multifamily is based on income. So if I have a certain income value, that property is worth a certain price. Versus I can have an identical property across the street. It has a different income. It has a different value.
Okay. So you're saying that want to make sure I hear you correctly. The value in multifamily is based off like the rents, the income, and not just the valuation from the appraisal what's selling in the area.
Correct.
Okay. So I'm gonna continue to walk through that deal. So I have 20% again depends on the purchase price. If a person does not have all of that 20%, let's say the property is worth, say, $700,000, and they don't have all 20%, what would you recommend them to do with that?
I would recommend that they get a joint venture partner. And getting a joint venture partner is a matter of knowing what you're doing and convincing someone else that you know what you're doing to invest in you and the deal. So if you know what you're doing and you say, listen, I've got this property and, I don't have the 20%, but I know you do. You can put in the money. I'll do the work, most of the work, and we can profit from this together. And that's a good entry point for those who don't have the money. They can get in by having some of the knowledge.
And from my knowledge of multifamily, again, it's a little different within the single family. The due diligence period. What occurs during the due diligence period?
So the due diligence period is mainly the time frame that you've agreed on to. It's kind of like in residential real estate, the inspection period.
Okay.
The only difference with due diligence in a multifamily is there's a lot more moving parts. In a multifamily, you need to not only verify rents, verify expenses, you have to budget out what you're going to do with the property, figure out what repairs you're going to make. You're going to do all of that, and with the physical inspection as well. So you have a certain time frame to get that done. It's a lot longer than single family. Normally you can get anywhere from 20 to 30 days to do your due diligence, and 30 is very common.
Got you. Okay, 30 days due diligence. All right, so during that process, that's when you have a slew of different contractors crawling all over the place, making sure everything's working well.
Right.
Do you recommend that person who's buying to actually deal with the management side of it? They manage
It
their own
depends on
property?
the size of the property and the individual who's buying its expertise. Because
Okay.
if they're coming from a property management background, and in your example, they're buying 20 units, yeah, you can manage that yourself if you've got the management background.
Okay.
If you don't, it's strongly recommended to hire a manager.
High manager. Got you. And typically, what is management fees?
It depends on the size of the property. It can be as high as 10 or 12%, and it can be as low as 3 or 4%, depending on the
Mm.
size of the property.
And that comes out monthly.
That comes out monthly, yes.
Comes out. Okay. Um, Great insight on that. If a person's interested now and they say, no, I don't want single family, I'm focused on multifamily in this current market, any particular regions or areas that you would recommend?
On a show like this, I'd hate to say where I'd recommend, but I have to say it because it's all about the dollar. You have to focus on states that are not litigious and not tenant friendly, because states like New York, where I come from, the
Mm-hmm.
laws are not landlord friendly.
Exactly.
They make it very difficult for you to raise rents, make it very difficult for you to, you know, get your rent, because the tenants in that environment, New York, California, and places like that, they don't value what the owner is bringing to the equation. So therefore, they make it very difficult for an owner to make a profit, because there's no other business that you go in where somebody says the cost of the goods are going to be regulated by me. If I sell apples, no one's telling me that I can't charge $10 an apple. Now, maybe if I
Right.
charge $10 an apple, I don't sell any, but that's my problem, right? But when it comes to real estate, the governmental agencies in certain states don't see it that way.
I think, and not trying to uh, highlight a particular area, but I think the Northeast is like tenant driven. Laws are totally against for
The,
landlords and
the
property
truth of the
owners.
matter is, it's mostly liberal states that are like that.
Okay, okay, interesting. That makes sense there. So I would say the flip side of that is basically Southeast, kind of somewhat
South,
Middle America,
Southeast, Midwest,
Midwest. Got you. Okay.
places like that, where they're not as liberal and they're not forcing the equation of, I'm biased, but in my opinion, everything should fall on the basic rules of economics, supply and demand. So
Got
if
you.
it falls on the basic rules of economics, supply and demand, I can only charge what the demand allows me to charge. I
Basically.
can't raise the rent beyond what the demand is. But, like I said, certain governmental agencies don't see it that way. So,
Okay. Okay. Being in a multifamily space, typically there is, I would imagine, there's a slew of different issues versus, single family, probably somewhat similar. If you can highlight a story or something real quick that you've encountered with a tenant that made you say, oh man, what am I dealing with here?
I can give you a story on a commercial property I owned about a
Okay.
tenant. I had a tenant who would, of course, remain nameless.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
They were paying rent on an agreement that we had.
Okay.
And we'll just say this tenant is a close proximity to me. They were assigned to pay rent. was below market value.
Okay.
And they weren't paying rent, but I was unaware of it because every a property I had it was a trusted individual. Every property I have has a separate bank account. So the understanding was, you put the rent in there. Any problems, let me know. I'll pay it. Trusted individual. 5, 6 years, never an issue. Then finally, I get a notice that my check bounced.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's not possible, because there's plenty of money in this account. Well, further investigation realized this person hadn't paid rent in a year.
Mm.
And my fault for not checking the account, but this was a trusted individual who had never had any history of not paying. But that was a bad story,
So viewers, pay attention to your money coming in. Avery.
Absolutely. No matter how much you have to pay attention to it.
You got to pay attention to it. You said something there that stuck out. Having an account for each different property.
Yes.
And why do you do that?
Because you don't want to commingle your properties with the funds that you have. Okay. So each property I have has a separate LLC. Each property that I have has a separate bank account. So there's never any, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul kind of situation. They're all handled individually.
And that's not
it's
required.
Also an asset protection. It's also an asset protection vehicle, because if you're suing me on property A,
makes sense.
Property B is not exposed.
So do you have, without getting into your business here, you said each one have their own LLCs. Is there a holding company that holds all of them, or are they just individual?
There are trusts.
Trust.
Not to get too complicated, but you do is you set up a trust that is the overarching, so they can't find out who owns the trust. The trust in turn owns the holding company, and the holding company in turn holds the LLCs. So it makes it so it's very difficult to be sued individually for anything.
So right now, if somebody wanted to do some due diligence on a particular property you own, they can come back and say, Mr. Phil owns that. Interesting.
On paper, I have nothing.
Oh yeah, as far as your name. Gotcha. Yes.
Right.
Nice.
Because
you hear that, people? Go ahead.
I was going to say, because when you get into a car accident, or someone has a slip and fall on your property, they hire a lawyer. A lawyer's job is to do an asset search, because they want to know they're going to get paid. So if they don't know that they're getting paid, then they don't want to take the case. So they do an asset search. They say, hey, Mike owns all of this here. He's a good candidate to sue. Versus they do an asset search on me. I don't own anything. You're probably not getting anything out of Phil, because Phil doesn't own anything.
Are you looking to join a winning team? Join us as a broker and receive high-level training, mentorship, and an awesome commission structure. If you're interested, visit www.theheadleygroup.com or call us at 336-904-6212. We look forward to partnering with you.
You hear that, people? I mean, we got to say it to the people in the back, Mr. Phil, because that was some good gems you just dropped.
Okay.
Mr. Phil said in his personal name, he doesn't own anything, because lawyers, if somebody slip and falls on a property, the first thing the attorney do is do an asset search. I wasn't aware of that. So they probably said during that consultation, so hold on for a second. Let me check this person out. Okay. We got a case.
Right.
Definitely a gem dropper there.
Yeah.
That's real enlightening. So, okay, you gave the insight about the individual, far as with the loan process, the bad story. What are the great benefits, multifamily versus single family?
The great benefit between multifamily and single family?
Yes, sir.
The greatest benefit is what we call economies of scale. So, in essence, if I own a single family and my air conditioner goes out, 100% of my air conditioning is out. If I own a 10 family or a 50 family or 100 family, I can afford to lose 5 or 6 of them and I'm still cash flowing. So
Correct.
the economies of scale is the best thing about multifamily.
Mm-hmm. Typically, in the multifamily space, and again, I don't know, but I'm just assuming if you got 50 unit and nine of the tenants in them units realize that interest rates has dropped, and now they're so eager they want to buy a home, they want to leave. Is the turnover ratio, as far as tenants leaving, is it pretty high, or you get people that
No,
stick it out and live there?
actually, the lender will require you to keep a 90% occupancy. And the illustration you gave was more like a 80% occupancy.
Okay, gotcha. Okay,
So by by definition, the lender wants to make sure, and they check pretty much quarterly to see what your occupancy is. And it should never be below 90 for more than 90 days.
but you can't prevent that, I guess, unless you look. How do you prevent that if someone wants to leave?
Well, there's a lot of techniques to prevent that.
Okay,
What's happening is you always keep, new tenants coming in. The likelihood of you losing 10% of your tenants in 1 month is very slim.
very simple. Gotcha.
One of
Okay,
the reasons is you don't have the leases expiring all at the same time. You
makes
you
sense.
you stagger your leases. So if I've got
Stagger your leases.
hypothetically 12 units, one lease expires every month. One in January, one in February, one in March. So I'm never really losing anyone. And for the guy that moves out in the middle of the night, okay, so I got two. But
Gotcha.
it's never a big number.
Mm. That's some great insight there. And like you said, the lender requires typically that 90% occupancy.
Right.
On your units, and I'm quite sure depends on the area, the unit. Do you do anything special? I notice, some apartment complexes, they'll have barbecue day, cookout day. They have, there's certain things, I guess, to keep the tenants happy. Do you do anything like that?
I used to.
Okay.
I don't so much now, mainly because the demand is so high. At times you say to yourself, is that an expense I need to spend on? Now,
Makes sense.
there are guys that still do all that all the time. And a lot of it is based on the owner and the relationship he has with the manager. So, for example, if I have a management company that's telling me, we got the turnover is a little high, what you want to do is create a sense of community. When you create a sense of community, like you have a 50 unit apartment complex and you have a courtyard, you might have a barbecue day because you want the tenants to intermingle with each other, become friends. And then it's a little harder to move away from your friends, as opposed to if you don't have that community connection, it's okay to move.
Okay, I like that. I like the concept, the psychology behind that as well. A person says, "Okay, Mr. Phil, I want to tap into the multifamily space, and I don't know exactly where to start. What would you recommend?"
I would recommend getting some education.
Education.
Multifamily, at the very lowest level, you need to know something, and at the upper levels, you need to know a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
So my first thing is education. I've always been a component of it, going all the way to the days of when I took that first seminar. I didn't get enough education, so that cost me money. That was what I like to call today in a very expensive seminar, right?
Okay.
So if you want to get into this space and you're listening, you really want to find someone who's going to show you the game. Find someone who's been doing it. Find a mentor or a coach. Just get somebody to hold your hands throughout that first deal.
Okay, so how do you do your due diligence or really decipher the, hate to say it, there's snakes out there. They want to take advantage of people, right? Go. Let me say this course for $10,000. I'll give you partial of the information.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know if there's so much thing as a partial of the information, but you have all of the tools available to you to determine whether this person really has multifamily or not. And to be honest with you, I went to a seminar and I still go to seminars on multifamily because I like to one, see what my competitors are teaching. Two,
Mm.
I like to see, the people that are in the room and what their mindset is. And sometimes I get a tip or two. And sometimes I just meet people who have invested in another program, and not saying that program wasn't any good, but they didn't click with that particular instructor.
Mm.
So they might come to me after they paid a lot of money for coaching and say, hey, I need a little more. But truth of the matter is, anyone who's teaching the business, myself included, there's no rocket science to what we're teaching.
Mm.
But that hand holding and that experience of saying this is what you shouldn't do is invaluable, because
Mm.
anyone can tell you what to do, but not everyone's going to tell you what not to do. You know,
Mm.
I've
Gotcha.
told I've told my students over time, because what happens with newer students, their goal is to get to the first property, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they fudge the numbers so they can buy something. They're eager,
Okay.
they're anxious, they want to buy
Right.
something, and they fudge the numbers. And I'll tell them, don't be that anxious, because you'll never ever lose money on a deal you didn't do. But the amount you
Mm.
can lose on a deal that you do that's wrong
Oof.
could kick you out of this business.
Wow. And you've been doing real estate for how long now?
Oh, wow. 1984. So, that's a long time ago.
Long time ago. And been doing it that long. Are you a buy and hold type of person, or you get rid of it?
I'm mostly a buy and hold. Over the years, I've been a buy and hold guy. I'm not going to say I
Gotcha.
didn't flip quite a few
Mm-hmm.
properties. I flipped, single families. I flipped multifamilies, large and small. But at my core, I'm a buy and hold guy.
Buy and hold guy. And I heard you mention students, so you do some teaching, guiding, and all that good stuff.
Yes, I do a lot of teaching and guidance to people. First I like to know that they're capable of completing the task.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So whereas you will get some of the big national brand speakers that, long as you have the money, you can enter the course.
Correct.
Given the fact that I'm more of a one-on-one guy, I can't accept everybody, even if I wanted to, because I don't have the
Makes sense.
capacity,
Makes
right?
sense.
So I screen people to hear them out, to see, do I think this person is going to be successful or not? Because I'd rather not take your money if you're not going to do the work and become successful.
Facts. Exactly. Exactly. So, but one thing you did mention that was very impactful is you said you do a kind of a one-on-one type thing.
Right,
So you see him through it.
right,
Oh, okay. You
right.
can't beat that. And if so I take it you what if a person that's watching says, "Hey, Mr. Phil, I want to sign up."
Well, first thing I'd ask him to do is go visit my website, which is multifamilygraduate.com. Go over what's
Repeat that
on
one more
there.
time, please. Repeat it one more time.
Multifamilygraduate.com.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'd ask him to go there, go through the website, take a good look, and then schedule, an admission interview, and we can talk about it and see, if the fit is correct for them and the fit is correct for me. Everyone's not gonna like my style, and I'm not gonna like
Mm.
everyone who wants to apply. So
And you
we'll
seem
find happy medium.
yeah, you seem like you know nonsense.
Well, I want you to succeed.
Exactly. It's like a coach does.
Right.
Mm. And okay, so right now, and I know you got properties literally through up and down East Coast.
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah, exactly. I figured that. Yeah, and with that kind of them properties, the years of an experience, I think you'll be an awesome teacher, instructor, and a guider. Um, Mr. Phil, listen, you see how this conversation went? You see how you enlightened us with so much great information? See that?
I'm glad I could.
That's right, brother. You really kind of and you actually put a spark in me. And like I said, we'll definitely talk offline. Mr. Phil, you have been a plus to the audience, and we really appreciate you coming. I'm asking this final question. Is there a question that you would want to answer that I didn't ask?
A question that I want to answer that you did not ask. I can't think of any right off the top of my head, but I'll answer any question you got.
Well, the good thing about it is that you're alumni to the show. We can always have you back.
Okay.
So, Mr. Phil, we ask every guest for 2 golden nuggets, whether that be a scripture, a book, a quote, or something that can get them inspired. Particularly, I would say in this space, but anything that you might say, I think y'all should follow up on this. What is that?
I'll give you 2. I'll give you 2. One is you have to focus. And I like to refer to the word focus in the following terminology. Follow one course until successful. Now, when you take focus that way, what I mean by it literally is make some money in your desired field before you want to switch gears. Too many of us want to plate spin. They want to try to be a multitasker. Multitasking truly doesn't work. But if you become a specialist in one area and you make money in that area, you can decide, I'm going to take some of that money and go into another area.
Nice.
But if you keep starting over and not being focused, you're never going to make money in any of them.
Makes sense.
And the second point is a Bible quote, since you asked for it, and I think it's Proverbs 13:22. Your job here is to leave an inheritance to your children's children. So you're not leaving it to your children. Get that right. Make them earn theirs. Leave it to their children and make them leave it for their children, their grandchildren. And that way, that's what generational wealth is all about.
And that's why Mr. Phil said he doesn't sell anything, buy and hold.
That's right.
That's right. But brother, listen, we want to thank you to being on the show, and all the audience that continues to watch and support. We appreciate that support, Mr. Phil, as well as myself. And you all take care, and we'll see you next time on Headley Group Real Estate Show.
Hey gang, I hope you really enjoyed that show. Our guests provided us some great tips and insight, and please support them on all social media platforms. And while I'm saying that, support us on all social media platforms, and don't forget, watch the entire video on YouTube. We'll see you next time.